Hello and welcome to this edition of Pop and Scott Talk Baseball. Uh, it seems like a lot going around the league, but it seems like the same old. What do you think, Dad?
Well, I mean, the season started and they're in the first quarter, and teams are starting to establish momentum, or in the case of the Rockies, non-momentum. I want to talk
Right,
about that. I want to talk about the Rockies later.
right.
Uh, but I just heard this morning, and I haven't been able to find uh, any more information. It was just a blurb on the MLB, and that is that Walt Jocketty, who is he was an MLB executive for years, he passed away this morning. So I don't have any information on what's going on, but he passed away this morning. But as far as the teams are going, I mean, uh, it's a little bit of a surprise. Detroit has had the best start since 2011.
Right.
Um, and they have the best record in the American League. The New York Mets have the best record in baseball.
Yeah,
And
they just called up two of the guys that have been out for this series against the Nationals.
And they had men on base, and they'd already scored a run when I came in here in the first inning against the Nationals today. And the other thing about the Mets and the Tigers is neither one of them knocking the cover off the ball. They're doing it with pitching and defense. Both teams are playing good defense, and they're getting great pitching. And that both teams are leading their leagues in ERA. So
The Mets are what the Mets do is score runs with two outs. They get time. They don't hit a lot, but they get timely hits, and some of their bats are waking up. Like I said, McNeil and Alvarez joined the team. They've been out. This is their first series back, so they sent down Brett Beatty and Seager, the backup catcher, which was actually hitting the ball pretty well. But there's no need to have three catchers. But Brett Beatty, they need to do something with him. But I digress. The Mets have been looking good, and their batting averages are coming up. They started out so slow with their bats, but yeah, they're really looking good. Especially you said it, the pitching. The pitching,
their pitching has been excellent. Both
and they
teams.
don't even have their Manea, so he's been out.
Well, today the Orioles are going against Scooble, and they've got a couple of three starters out with just soreness and stuff. They're not going to miss a lot of games, but they're just out.
Right.
They played a doubleheader yesterday. Gee, a doubleheader killed a Major League Baseball player. I hear something like that. Well, they played a doubleheader yesterday. I'm sitting there going, when I was a kid, there was a doubleheader almost every Sunday.
So I couldn't find. I didn't look too hard either. Was the Mets rained out in National Saturday?
Yes.
Okay.
No. They were rained out. No.
They played Friday because Nationals won in 10 innings.
Yeah, they played yesterday too because
because they're playing Monday too, Monday afternoon.
They're playing a 4-game series then.
Yeah, they're playing at like 4:30.
They're playing a 4-game series. That's all that is. I mean,
I don't know if Monday is Sunday.
Nationals on Friday night. Talk about a clutch hit. They finally got one. They don't do that much, and they got a clutch hit from Wood, who's that kid.
But McNeil, if Acuna's playing second, I don't know if that's a hit.
Well, the other thing is too, the inning started because Soto botched a fly ball in right field where most right fielders would have caught it.
Right.
And Wood did the same thing yesterday in left field. Wood is a liability on defense, but the kid can hit a ton. And they're already talking about whether he's probably going to go to the Dodgers or the Yankees or the Mets when his time is up.
That's horrible. And it's not like Washington is a small market. They got the money to pay him.
Well, they still have the same problem. You don't hear anything this year about the owner trying to sell the team. He tried to sell the team for 3 years. The guy that wanted to buy it wanted to put it on the Metropolitan Network, where he already owns the NBA team, which stinks, and the WNBA team, which is actually pretty good, and the hockey team. So he, and the Caps. But they have a problem with Masson.
Yeah.
because the Orioles and the Nationals have contracts with Masson, so
Right.
can't get out of them. So that's why they haven't sold. But anyway, the Nationals also have the first pick this year in the draft,
Right.
and they're thinking they may take Holiday's little brother, who plays shortstop. The Seattle Mariners traded this week. They got Dean Pomerantz, and they gave the Cubs got Dean Pomerantz from Seattle, and they gave them cash. He last pitched in 2021 in the majors. He was playing in AAA Tacoma.
Yeah, I remember when he was coming up with the Rockies, and he was supposed to be like, somebody to look at.
Yeah, he was supposed to be he was supposed to be the next big deal.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, and he kind of
how can you be a big deal and pitch for the Rockies? Because Colorado's hard to pitch in.
Well, there's been a couple of pitchers that survived there.
And Jock Peterson, he broke an 0 for 41 slump.
Yeah.
The other night, he got a hit. It's the longest streak in Texas history in the history of the team. 0 for 41.
You got to get your hat off to the manager for Texas to stick with it. We're gonna stick with it.
Well, Ohtani was 2 for 16. And then
Ohtani is kind of a little different.
Well, the other thing with Ohtani is, too, in that period, he had 4 walks. So it wasn't like he wasn't on base.
Right. Which
he was striking out a lot this year.
Probably 4 steals at least.
Well, they found out where everybody has a weakness. I don't care.
Right.
Babe Ruth had a weakness.
Yes.
Willie Mays had a weakness. Every team has a weak. Every hitter has a weakness. They found out Ohtani's high inside, where a lot of pitchers are. So if they can get the ball up in there and he'll swing at it, keep throwing it.
He can't get up to that left. And left-handers, that's what Ryan Howard for the Phillies had that same issue back in the day. He was a killer. He could hit for power and average. And that was his hole, and he had to combat it. He blew out his Achilles celebrating going down first base. But
the Nats pulled off a triple play Friday night too.
I saw that.
First in their history.
I can't watch the games because it's the Nationals.
Blacked out, yeah.
Yeah, I can't watch them, so I try to get out.
Which makes no sense. Mets blacked out in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Makes no sense.
Right.
I mean, you'd have to fly to get to the game, and it's just ridiculous.
It's to get to Nationals Park from here, it's a little over 6 hours.
Yeah. Well, AJ Puck for Arizona went out with he has a bad elbow. He's on the IL. Corey Seager went out of the game the other night. He's on the IL with a hamstring, and that Texas can't go do without him for long. I mean, he's
right.
And let's see. Oh, Chito Ruiz, who was an outfielder for the Orioles, and from 91 to 93, he was 59 years old. He passed away. And what was so significant about him was he's the only major league player to come from Belize. I've seen teams from Belize in the Little League World Series, but he passed away Friday. And Seattle pitcher Logan Gilbert, he went out with right forearm tightness in the 4th inning last night, and they're not sure whether he's going to go on the IL.
That could hurt.
Yeah, that could hurt. And especially when I get to the standings, I'll tell you now. When you get to the standings, they're tied with Texas for first place.
Right.
And Arizona, Eugenio Suarez.
Yes. 4
home runs last night.
Yes.
And they lost.
The golden, I don't know what that is. That is Reggie Jackson-esque.
Well, he hit 4 home runs. He was the 19th player to hit 4 home runs in a game.
And I saw a couple of them. He wasn't cheated.
No. He hits the ball about 10 miles. Now, the next 25 times up, he'll strike out 24. But that's beside the point.
My friends are happy because it was against the Braves. So,
yeah, but the Braves won.
That's true.
Braves came back and won. They won the game.
Yeah.
They were interviewing Suarez after the game and congratulated him. He said, I'd rather we won.
Yeah, and also for the Durham Bulls threw a collective no-hitter.
Oh, there you go.
For Durham. Of course, one pitcher doesn't throw a complete game in the minors for any reason. So.
Oh, you don't in the majors much.
Well, if a no-hitter is going, they'll try to keep you out there. But in
the
miners, you're not going to. They don't. Most of them go 70, 75 minutes.
Yesterday, the Orioles were playing the Tigers, and Cade Povich was pitching. And he actually, no, it's the day before. It's Friday. I'm sorry. He was pitching. Now, his last game against Cincinnati, he looked like Maury Povich. But against Friday night, he looked good. I mean, he looked good. He doesn't throw hard, but he spots the ball. So people don't get to hit. They don't hit it solid, and they hit a lot of ground ball and pop-ups. But he pitched well. I mean, I was looking at him. I said, well, you pitched like Maury Povich the last game. Let's see what you do tonight, big boy. He did a good job. The last time, and this is kind of odd. It's not odd, but it's the way sports is. Sometimes I'm sitting there watching a game or something, and I'll say something's going to happen. And your stepmother says, it'll happen. And she'll say, how did you know that? I said, honey, I didn't know it. It's just the way it works. If you watch as much sports as I've watched in 79 years, you've seen all this stuff. A guy drops a foul ball in foul territory. Next pitch, guy rifles a shot somewhere in the gap or out of the ballpark. I mean, it happens doesn't happen all the time, but it happens a lot.
Right.
Umpire misses a call on a strike 3. Boom, the next pitch. So you see it all the time. And, it is what it is. But, I mean, Suarez wasn't the last guy, but wasn't the only guy to hit 4 home runs in a game, and their team lost. Now, they lost to the Braves. The last time that happened was 1986, and it was the Braves. It was Bob Horner, who used to play third base. He hit 4 home runs.
I remember old Bob Horner, yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, we saw him play. Bob Horner hit 4 home runs, and Atlanta lost. Oh, and remember last week when we were talking about the 6 stolen bases, and you asked me who they were playing? They were playing not Oakland, West Sacramento, the A's, the Athletics. Boston's
you brought up the A's, and this is reminding me of something, and I want to let it go. There is a lot of hate for the A's fans, right? Or people that were saying that the lack of attendance was because of Oakland, and they went to Sacramento, and they're showing pictures, and it looks like they're having a pretty good attendance I'm like, the place is far from empty. It's far from full. But when you start looking at the grass is always full.
Yeah, only those 2 outfields where there are people all over the grass.
Yeah, that's the hangout spot. But there's quite a few people in the seats too. I'm like, I think you need to, check what you're saying here. But I mean, yeah, it's far from full. But I mean, it's like Tampa Bay.
Tampa's playing in a minor league ballpark, but the Yankees still they get something, figure out what they're going to do, and they're doing real well.
Right. So maybe the answer is not building bigger structures, is to build family-friendly structures.
Right. Make it family-friendly and make it cozy.
Right.
And
stop with these mega structures.
Yeah. Let's get 150,000 fans.
Well, not only that, but you want all this glass and things moving around and water tanks and all that. You don't need all of
Fish.
that. Yeah. First, you need a decent baseball team, and then second, you just need a family favorite and cheap food. That's the 3 things.
Yeah. Well, my man Schwarber for the Phillies, he's got a 33 game on base streak going. He does this periodically.
I wonder why they moved him, because it seemed to work unconventionally that him in the leadoff spot.
He was hitting leadoff, yeah, and they moved him.
They moved him to 3rd or 4th, I think, this year. Just in between Harper and Castellanos, it doesn't I don't understand that. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, that's a good point. They're not in first place.
Yeah.
Jerron Duran, one of the best outfielders in baseball, plays for the Boston Red Sox. Last night in the second game of a doubleheader against Cleveland, he stole home.
Yes, I saw it. Did you see how far off?
Well, the pitcher never looked at him.
Well, that was. I'm sitting here. You're taught the first year you play in a league that leads off. You look over to third, and if he's down like that, you step off and you run straight at him. I'm sitting here going, this is Little League. I mean, that was off the pitcher. That was terrible.
Yeah, he never looked at him.
Never looked at him.
I saw 3 or 4 plays yesterday that a major league ball player ought to be embarrassed.
Right.
One
like you don't even have to be in a half stretch. You could be in a full stretch and step off the back and run at
Gunnar Henderson hit a little ground ball to the second baseman yesterday. It was over near the shortstop was playing up the middle. So he hit it up the middle. He got right behind the bag. And you know how they throw the short hop to the first baseman?
Mm-hmm.
This ball wasn't a short hop. This ball landed about halfway to first in the dirt.
Yeah.
And the guy, Torkelson, couldn't catch it. I'm going, that's not a major league play, fellas. You got to talk to this guy when he gets to the dugout. Well, he didn't do it the rest of the game. Same game. The Tiger right fielder. Pop up in foul territory down the right field line. He's running like a train. The first baseman's running back after it. The second baseman's coming over. They all stop and the ball falls between them for a foul ball. And I was upset.
Mm-hmm.
And your stepmom goes, what's the matter, honey? That was a hard catch. I said, the outfielder calls the ball. Nobody called it. You could look at him when they showed the replay. Nobody called it. 3 guys call it. But the outfielder, when you're coming to the ball, you call it and run hard. If he'd have kept running hard, he'd have caught it. But he saw the other 2 guys and stopped. That was the second time I saw that this weekend.
Well,
another game, the guys won't call it.
About 3 years ago has been the thing of playing people hitting your best 9 and maybe playing somebody in outfield that hasn't played outfield since Little League, right?
Well, Baez is a great center field for the Tigers. Right.
Well, he's a good athlete. He's probably played every position growing up.
On the field, yeah.
On the field. Most shortstops, like the Padres. But not everybody is like that. Not everybody, you move somebody and it changes the dynamics of the game. Angles, how the ball comes off the bat, all that stuff. And not everyone can just jump right in. You think you can. Like, you grew up, most of those guys probably played enough games at different positions to understand the position and know the game of baseball where they know where they're supposed to be. But still, I've been watching a lot of people playing different positions this last couple of years, and you're going to have an occasional play like that where I feel like that is a lack of experience at that level. Because maybe that outfielder didn't know he probably been drilled that, but in that moment, he's not played it enough where it's just academic that he does that, right? So, I don't know what the play was, and I'm not trying to defend it because to me that's a Little League play.
It is. It was.
Because the outfielder is supposed to call it as soon as he and probably the second baseman probably had a better angle than the first baseman. But it is what it is. I'm just putting out there. You said
that ball fell in foul territory.
With Baez playing center field, and he'll probably be an all-star this year playing center field. Another one of these great players, Biggio-esque, that can just plug and play. Great talent. And now you talked about from the neck down. That's a great talent from the neck down. So hopefully, being older, he's starting to get it a little bit. So, well, that manager for the Tigers don't take no crap. So
no, he'll bench you in a heartbeat.
Yeah, he pulled him already down in the dugout, kicked him out.
Well, I mean, I'd like to point out too that there's a few players that had terrible years last year, and they're doing pretty well this year so far.
Right.
There's Arenado, Goldschmidt, and Polanco. All three of them had bad years last year, and they're all doing pretty well this year. So
Goldschmidt's been in a little bit better of a lineup. He's a little bit better.
Well, I mean, he's protected in that Yankee lineup.
Right.
I mean, talking about the Yankees in the American League, they're the only team in the American League that has that their lineup is just permeated with hitters.
Mm-hmm.
Baltimore is not. Baltimore, right. You would think they do, but they don't. But I mean, it's just one of the problems is Gunner's not having a very good year. He's hitting the ball a ton, but he's hitting it right at people.
Right. Yeah. And, it's just a matter as long as they're not striking out, and I call it just non-confidence contact, where they're just kind of just making contact. As long as they're hitting it hard, they'll find spots.
Yeah, I believe is it Jesse Minter for the Mets. He left the game last night with tightness in his shoulder.
Pitcher?
His bicep tightness.
Was that a pitcher?
I guess. I don't know. I
don't know that name. I ran off the top of my head.
I just heard Minter. He's a relief pitcher. I did not look up. I didn't count all the teams with losing records today. I didn't think that was important. But I did look up at I looked at the records this morning.
Oh, AJ Minter.
AJ Minter, yeah.
He's been our 8th inning. He's been awesome this year.
Yeah, well, he went out with bicep tightness.
It's been the rookie Clarenick, Minter. It took me a minute, and then
they said it's going to be day by day. They're going to check him day.
Well, Clarenick will probably take the rookie.
In the standings, in the American League, the Bronx Bombers have a 1.5 game lead over Boston and 2 over Toronto. In the Central, Detroit has the best record in the American League, and they have a 1.5 game lead over the Kansas City Royals. Everybody else is back.
Let's go Royals.
Seattle and Texas are tied for first place in the West. That division is so tight that the last place Angels are 2.5 back. Let's see, in the National League.
And the Angels were just in first, last week or the week?
Last week, they were first.
Yeah.
Right, the Pirates. The New York Mets have a 5 game lead over the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, the Braves have won 14 out of their last 16 games. They are playing lights out. They had that real bad record. Now they're coming, and they're going to get Strider back, and they should get Acuna back somewhere around the All-Star break.
I thought Strider pitched last week.
Well, he's still pitching. He pitched a minor league. What did he call it? The tune-up or whatever they call it.
Yeah, I thought he started against Toronto.
Maybe he did, but I knew he pitched a warm-up game. He probably did, but he's going to be back, and Acuna is going to be back eventually. And so I wouldn't sleep on it. You picked Atlanta to win that division, and I don't care how bad they start. It's how you finish.
Right.
And the Cubs have a 2.5 game lead on the Reds. The Phils dropped a 10 bomb on them yesterday on the Cubs.
Strider is back. He might be because he's 0-1 right now. He lost to the Blue Jays.
All right. San Francisco has a 1/2 game lead over both the Dodgers and San Diego. And it might be pointed out the Dodgers are not hitting the ball that great. Their pitching's only okay, and their bullpen has let them down. The guy they got from San Diego, who was going to be their closer, the left-hander, he can't get anybody out.
Right.
He couldn't close a car door. So, I mean, and so they're just, they're not doing as well as they did last year. Now it's early, so we'll have to wait and see. But I tell you, I mean, unless they have injuries in that, I think Detroit's for real.
Oh yeah, Well,
I
you,
think,
me and you, but you were a little bit ahead of them than I was.
yeah, I was on
I didn't
Detroit
think
last.
this was their year. I was, and I didn't think. I thought the Indians were still the class of that.
They are. The Indians might be.
Yeah, but man, those three teams. It's going to come down to the end. It's going to be exciting.
Well, the end of the
I
year,
think it's going to be an exciting season all around. But yeah,
when those three teams have to play each other, that's going to be some exciting.
That should be the games of the week. Like screw anybody else. Yeah.
Well, you know as well as I do, Cleveland could be playing Kansas City, and everybody in the world knows that's the best game on that week. But if Boston's playing the Yankees, guess what they're going to show?
Right.
All right. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about Colorado. I'm going to speak slowly. I'm not going to stutter.
This is a family-friendly channel. Just remember that.
Well, I'm about to be unfriendly. There are reports out of Denver that fans and other people, media people, want the manager fired because they've only won like 4 or 5 games. Got one of the worst starts in baseball history. The manager is only as good as the players he's got. So before you fire the manager, maybe you should check out the general manager, the scouting department, who make the decisions on who you're going to draft, and the owner. So before you fire the manager, get those dudes up there, talk to them, and see what's going on.
I'm still very lost that you let your Mr. Rocky third baseman walk away without even trying to sign him, and you signed Chris Bryant. I was lost at that for when and you gave him almost the same thing that.
And you're not, when they did that, you can't blame that on the manager. He doesn't make those decisions.
Right. They give him the 40-man roster, and then they tell him which 25, 26 are going to be on his major league roster, and that's what he goes with. He might have some say, but not much. They'll even come down there and tell him who's playing what because how much they're paying him. So,
yeah, and he hardly ever plays because he's always hurt.
Right, and I mean, I talked about it last year, and then one of the outfielders won a Gold Glove. So maybe I don't know. Just the games that I happen to watch with the Rockies is one of the worst fielding teams that I've ever seen, like above high school. I mean, they are bad, and I don't understand them. And then they don't build to what they are. You play half your games in a place where you're going to hit more, even though with the humidors, the balls don't go as like they used to, but they still are more home runs there. So they don't build their team to that. They don't go after ground ball pitchers, and they don't go after guys that hit majority, now at this day and age of the uppercut. It's just kind of weird to me, even though half the games you play outside of your stadium, so you need to be ready for that. But they're a team that has no direction when you watch them. And when you see the moves they make, you're like, they didn't do anything this last year. So I don't know. They're another team that's trying to build with that. I think that's the Houston Astros have done it, and now everybody's copying. Build from drafts and make a couple of minor league trades.
Yeah, but if you build from a draft, you got to draft people that can play.
Right. And it's tough to do in Colorado. So I have something I want to talk about too, but I want you to finish your thought before we get
No, I'm done.
Yeah, the Colorado Rockies, I've been scratching my head over them for a couple of years now.
Not like the White Sox, and they're not good either, but at least they're trying.
White Sox.
The White Sox,
right. Last year they kind of gave up, but I think that was they didn't. The manager needed to go because you saw a difference there.
Right. They're playing a lot better.
Right. So I don't know. Maybe it's the same thing in Denver, and we're not privy to that outside of the city. I don't know, but
I'm 79 years old. Give me a call and a paycheck, and I'll go up there and take that team. And if they don't win, then you know it's your fault.
So that's I hope they take you up on that. But anyway,
yeah, I'll give you a job in the front office.
I want to talk about something that is happened in our family this weekend. We had a family chat about something. Me, you, and your sister.
Yeah, you're on.
And I know this is the NFL draft we're going to talk about, but I want to tie it back into baseball and all sports. So Sanders Jr. did not get drafted till the 5th round by the Browns, and there was a lot of infighting from what we're hearing on that pick. And there was a lot of stuff that came out, video about him and Cam Ward talking, and Cam's telling him, I want to be known as a football player, nothing else. And he wants to do rap videos. And his pro day was more of selling his brand than it was as a quarterback, and all this stuff. And his daddy saying they don't draft the attitude, they draft the player, all this other stuff. Well, he don't play like his daddy, for one, and there's a lot of other stuff in the modern that we're seeing in all sports. And I've been asking this about Trevor Bauer for weeks, and now I see it now. Same kind of thing, not the same smoke covering this kid, but these owners and general managers, there's so much talent out there. I don't have to deal with that. And I'm sitting there watching this going, man, are we starting to see the maturation of these owners and GMs and people in the sports world that, hey, we can get somebody else. We don't have to deal with you. And you're seeing it in every sport. You're not just seeing it. And I'm not picking on Sanders. I hope this kid goes on and has a Hall of Fame career, turns Cleveland into a Super Bowl winner. The city needs it, but he needs some growing up to do. And hopefully he got humbled a little bit this weekend.
Well, he claims he has.
Right. And I'm hoping, but he's not the only one that with that situation. He's not. And some guys that got drafted early on are going to be in the same case, but they're not Deion's boy. They're not media on social media and all that. I guess my point is like, I think we're seeing this in all sports. Baseball, they're weighing out the pros and cons because it's big money. And these teams now are brands. And you see how much those brands cost to these owners. When they go to sell a team, they don't want to have to answer to the next owner, hey, what about this guy? I mean, these teams are billions of dollars. The Cleveland Browns are a $1 billion franchise. So they don't want to deal with, they're going to deal with this, but I wonder how much you're going to do. They didn't deal with Baker Mayfield very long. So, I'm wondering not just that, but what are your thoughts because you grew up in an era where the sports writers were friends with the players. They didn't talk about what happened behind the scenes. Now the players are filming their own behind the scenes and putting it out there. It's come a long ways from when you were a kid to now when it comes to what's in the news. What are your thoughts on this? If I articulated this well enough to have a question in there.
Well, I mean, when I was coming up, you didn't know anything about most of the players and managers and that because it wasn't reported. If the people in the newspaper business and TV and radio business knew about it, they didn't report it.
Right.
It was just kept under wraps. Now it's out there for the whole world to see because everybody's got a phone with a camera on.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do anything in a bar, it's going to be photographed by about 200 people. Mm-hmm. That's one problem. The second problem is social media, and it's a curse. So I read an article this morning on the internet Somebody wrote an article, and I knew this was going to come out sooner or later. The reason this happened to Sanders is because when a black man stands up for himself, when a black man shows confidence, this is what happens. He's knocked down. That's what the article was about. It was horse hockey, but that's what the article was about. Trying to make an excuse. When you go in to talk to the coaching staff, it's a job interview.
Mm-hmm.
It's exactly what it is. Just like a job interview at McDonald's. You're still talking to a boss. One of the other problems that some of the players had, and I heard this on Colin Cowherd's show from one of the general managers, ex-general managers. But now that they've got all this NIL money, a lot of these players are coming into these meetings, and the head coach and the general manager and the owner, that's fine. But they don't even want to look at the assistant coaches because they make more money than they do.
Right.
So they look at the assistant coaches as you're nothing. I make more.
They get that in their first paycheck anyway. Well, it depends on how far down the coaching line you go. But I mean, if that's the case, then they're ain't listening to no other than the head coach when it comes to college. Because that was just one of the things that was said.
Yeah. But I mean, to be honest, when this was going on, I watched the first round. I always do, and I watched a little bit of this. I watched some of the second round until Washington made their pick, and then I wasn't interested. I was watching baseball after that, and I turned back over there to see if he got picked by anybody. His name was still up there. Well, I felt bad for the kid, really, but he's got nobody to blame but himself. And I'm going to tell you this: you got a chance to make it to rectify it.
Mm-hmm.
You're on a team now. You and the other three quarterbacks in that room are equal. Go out there and beat them and get the starting job. That's what you do.
Mm-hmm.
You have the same opportunity Joe Flacco does, and Flacco's been in the league for 122
years. Is Flacco back there? Because he wasn't there last year.
Flacco's back with Cleveland.
Okay, because if Deshaun Watson's there, that's 1 or 2 games.
He and Kenny Pickett signed with Cleveland. Flacco signed with Cleveland. And I can't remember the other gentleman's name.
Is Deshaun Watson still there? Because they owe him a butt.
Well, Deshaun Watson's still there, but they're going to cut him.
Okay.
And just pay him. They're going to pay him and cut him. Get rid of him.
Whatever.
So those 4 quarterbacks, just forget about Deshaun Watson.
Mm-hmm.
He has the opportunity now to beat them out and get the starting job. So,
and if not, you're like I've always said, every job, doesn't matter where you're working. Doesn't matter if you're digging ditches or playing quarterback in an NFL, you're always on interviewing for your next job because you don't know who's watching and you don't know who's going to be there at your next job. That's going to speak for you.
There's somebody always wanting your job.
Right. And that is a big thing. And I'm not talking just for him. I'm talking about, we're seeing this across all the leagues that they're starting to, before – if somebody had some character flaws, it wasn't out there for everybody to see. And that's in my lifetime. This is a newer thing now where they started branding themselves probably, about 20 years ago. But now with social media being bigger than regular TV, it's gone to a different level. And, these kids, need to learn, they really need some guidance somewhere when it comes to that. Because I'm not trying to beat up on Deion. Deion doesn't know much about social. He grew up like we did. He's thinking like when he grew up, like at FSU, he was just a guy at FSU that was known by everybody. And he was the best corner in NCAA and return man. But, I think his son's got a lot of talent. And like I said, I am not picking on him. This is just something I'm seeing in every league now. Basketball, football, hockey, soccer. It doesn't matter. There's so much money involved now.
Well, I read an article last year about a lot of the baseball players have all their equipment, gloves, and everything else shipped to the next where they're going to play next when they're out of town, and they carry, of course, their luggage and their briefcases with all their,
Right.
whatever they have to, with their computer and everything, so they can keep up with their financial stuff. So that's what they do. And that's the way. That's
And
professional.
some of them even carry their baseball cards.
Right. But I mean, I'm hoping that that he does fine. I hope he comes out of this
Yes.
and he does a good job and he does fine. I always root for all these young men.
Mhm.
When they get this opportunity, I root for every one of them to make the most of it. And if you don't, then you're going to have to. Okay.
And the other thing
Don't,
is,
and pick up your ego and go do something else.
you know how many like teenagers and young people, young adults were watching him that look up to him and want to be the next Sanders, that want to go play at Colorado with his dad, and hopefully he'll come out and this will help him with those growing other young men and women out there. That there's always a lesson to learn, and I'm hoping it's learned by many on this one. And like I said, I wish him luck, but I made a statement to some of my friends. This is something I've been noticing in all the leagues. So, I don't think it was just him. I don't think. I think he got the brunt of it for whatever reason. I think I wouldn't be surprised if something happens where, like a lawsuit or something, because it almost felt like the owners got together. Somebody made some phone calls.
Well, I mean, I that's going to be hard to prove, but
that's
going to be hard to prove. But I just like I put an email to your aunt. I said, look, a lot of these teams felt like sooner or later they're going to have to deal with Dad.
Mm-hmm.
If I tell him he's not going to make the first team, or if I tell him he's doing something wrong and he complains to Daddy's liable to call me and ask me what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to put up with that garbage.
Right.
There's too many. That was one of the problems with RG3 when he was in Washington. Was his father was there calling all the shots.
Right. Was trying to.
Well, I mean, he did a lot because he was friends with the owner.
His mom was involved.
And it's like LeBron James' mom. They said she had her heart was a cash register. So these kids, they're still young people, and they've got a lot to learn. And got a lot to learn, not just about football, but a lot to learn about life. Especially if you've had an upbringing where you pretty much had everything you needed and didn't have to work.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I just thought that was something to touch on, not just because of who it was or because to me it was very relative to all sports, especially this day and age where we're going to see this time and time again. Especially now I'm seeing more and more highlights of pimping after home runs. If you watch the Virginia Tech North Carolina series this week, even high school kids, I've even heard scouts, telling people not to draft people because of some of that stuff. And just because you see the majors do it doesn't mean it's cool for you to do it. They're there, you're not.
Well, it's fine. It's fine for you to have. It took me years to figure out what they meant. A brand.
Right.
It's fine for you to have a brand. Just remember, your brand is not bigger than the team.
Right. Yeah, that's my thing. Like that Browns helmet is bigger right now than your double S dollar sign necklace that you like to wear. But but it's like that for everything. And teams are gonna, I think we see this when people are going out to get, their next contract in baseball, what are teams willing to put up with and what they already have on their team? There's so much talent out there. There's always the next somebody coming up. So people need to remember that. And that's it. And that's all I wanted to touch on with that, because I thought that was such a huge thing in sports all around and not just football. I thought that needed to be talked about on this show. So, you got anything else for us, Dad?
Two things real quick. This was the pad I started out with. I just used the last page. 102 shows are in this with notes and stuff. I started out with a review of the St. Louis Brown stockings of the American Association when they started in 1883 and became the Browns. So that's the first. That's that. Now, so I'm gonna have a new notebook next week for my notes. Now, my yogiism for this week. Bear with me. This takes some explaining. Somebody used the term when they asked him a question, in a perfect world, how would this do this? And he said, if the world was perfect, it wouldn't. He said, if the world was perfect, it wouldn't be. And they just
that's the logic there.
And he said, you have to have the good with the bad, or you'd never know what the good was.
Right.
So if you had a perfect world, you wouldn't know it was perfect because you don't have anything to put up against it. So that was his logic, but that was how he answered that question. If he had a perfect world, it wouldn't be. And like on most of yogis, when you hear his explanation, it actually makes sense. So,
all right. Well, thank y'all. We went a little longer. We had a lot more to talk about this week. We got a little deep there at the end, but that sometimes this is the way our phone calls usually go. So that's
the way the world is. It's the way the world is now.
Yeah. So let us know how you're feeling about things, about sports in general or baseball. And until next time, subscribe if you haven't, and we will see ya.